Welcome to the first episode of Buckets here in the Channel Seed Studios.
Buckets!
Buckets! Buckets left, buckets right. Glad we could join you on a slow news day.
Yeah, nothing else going on.
I
We're
suppose
we'll launch this show on a night where there's nothing happening.
I suppose we should introduce ourselves and then address the elephant in the room. I'm Jake Brend. I host Bigger Than 12 here on Iowa Everywhere. I'm also a full-time employee of Cyclone Fanatic. Andrew Downs is the producer of Murph and Andy, and he's just the Swiss Army knife.
That's
here
right,
at Iowa
yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah, doing a little bit of everything. Instant Iowa with Chris Hassel, but that's coming to a close. We'll have a bowl show yet, but I filled in on two guys this morning. You and I, the first time we ever did anything like this together was, about a year ago. I guess it was around
It was somewhere
Christmas.
around Christmas season.
And we filled in on two guys and had some fun, and we're both basketball junkies, and we figured we need some sort of basketball show on Iowa Everywhere, and this is it.
Both hoop heads. I'm a Cyclone. Downs is a Hawkeye, as you can tell by the backgrounds, and
By my Ben McCullum tie.
we're gonna have some friendly banter. We'll probably be I'd like to think a little more contentious than Chris and Chris. They kind of buddy up to each other when it comes to the Cyclones and Hawkeyes. We're gonna have respectful conversations, but we'll lean into the rivalry a little bit here.
Tell it like it is.
But we should probably address the elephant in the room. There's been some Matt
yeah.
Campbell rumors. We're not going to talk about it today. This is a basketball show.
Mm-hmm.
Open up Twitter. Open up social media. You'll see what's going on. Chris Williams has been doing some very in-depth reporting at Cyclone Fanatic Premium. So if you are not a subscriber of that and you want the instant inside information, head on over there. We're not going to ignore it. If I get a text that says Matt Campbell just got extended for blah, 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 or Matt Campbell is officially heading to blah, 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 we'll see what happens at that point. But until then, we're just going to talk some ball, and we'll take our minds off it. And if you're a Cyclone fan that wants to talk some hoops, just stick with us here for the next 30 to 45 minutes here in the Channel Seed Studios.
One of those wild nights, man. One of those wild nights.
Yeah.
This will be
wild day.
or maybe not, right? I mean, like, who knows? Depending on how this plays out in the next 24, 48 hours, it'll be interesting.
No matter how it plays out, it's going to be one of those crazy days. So we'll.
I figure since Duke is always drinking beer, I should have a beer. You know, your co-host has to have a beer, I think.
I might have one after. Well,
you might have a few after.
We set up this show called Buckets, and it, like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
A bucket of beer, some basketball buckets, all that stuff. I feel like we should probably start with the Iowa Hawkeyes. They've played a more significant game recently.
Yeah.
They play Michigan State. If you want a full in-depth talk about it, go listen to two guys this morning with AD and CW. It was pretty good. I want to talk more just, was it shocking for you at all? What were the growing pains maybe more substantial than you expected, or was it kind of like, it had to happen at some point?
It's a little bit of all of it, right? I think had you told me back at the start of the season or even after a game or two that's how that was going to look on Tuesday night, I wouldn't have been surprised at all. Of course, that's how it's going to look. Your first Big Ten game with a team full of Drake transfers is at the Breslin Center against Izzo. You're going to have growing pains. It's probably going to get ugly. You're going to be out rebounded. You're not going to have a second, scoring option. All of those things, I think, were all of the things that coming into the season, Iowa fans and just generally people were worried about with the way this roster is built. And it was put together the way it was by Ben McCullum pretty quickly. It's a lot of Drake players, a couple of transfers, one or two holdovers. But I think what had happened, Jake, is over the span of the first 7 games, Iowa looked pretty good.
Yeah.
And they beat teams that, like Ole Miss, that we thought were pretty good, and we'll see how good Ole Miss is in the scheme of things. Grand Canyon was a decent team. Robert Morris, a decent team, right? So Iowa started picking up these wins, and the way they were playing and the way they looked, it seemed so connected. You really understood why Ben McCullum brought all these guys from Drake, because that instant chemistry is just a hard thing to you can't microwave that, right, in an off season. But if you have a bunch of guys who have played together and kind of know especially how to play with Bennett Sturts, it's going to make things a lot easier. And so through that first 7 games, and I was just outside the top 25, and I think Iowa fans, myself included, started to believe that, hey, maybe this is going to happen a lot quicker than we thought it would. I still don't know that that's not the case. I still think this is probably an NCAA tournament team. But any
Agreed.
thought of like this being a Sweet 16 team, I think now you tamp that down a little bit, and you realize, hey, this is going to be a lot tougher. And again, some of those things that we all pointed at when this roster was built, the lack of size, the inability to find a second scorer, some of these things that, the physicality that's going to be night in and night out in the Big Ten that you just don't see in the Missouri Valley. Some of those things are going to be big issues for this team as we move through this season. And so it was certainly a reality check. It's not a reason to panic. It's a good thing, I think, because we get to see now how this team rebounds from this, how Ben McCullum adjusts, how this team adjusts. I think having a stable force like Bennett Sturts is great in these moments. But it'll be interesting to see how they come out on Saturday at home against Maryland, and did they learn anything? Are they playing differently? There's going to be nights like this as we go. So no reason to panic, but definitely eye-opening in that some of the issues we thought this team would have, they are going to have. And that 7-0 start, not fool's gold. They won those games, and I think some of those are going to end up being good wins. But tamp down the expectations a little bit. I think thinking this team was going to be a top 25 team for much of the season, maybe they will. I think you back off, though, from a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, there's a few different ways I want to go with this, because there's the aspect of, new coach syndrome. And every fan base gets this. It's what makes being a fan great. It's what makes these coaching searches great. Almost nobody hires a coach, except, I guess, my Dallas Cowboys. Almost nobody hates the coach they hire. I couldn't stand the Schottenheimer hire when it happened. I've actually kind of grown to like him. But when your place hires someone, you want to like him and you want to expect all the best. And I think McCullum's going to be really good for Iowa. And I also think there were some misconceptions of, yeah, they played really slow at Drake, but that's not how they played at Northwest Missouri State. But then you do the math and you think, well, if they're bringing a lot of the same guys, they're not instantly going to go from playing super slow to playing fast with those guys year one in the Big Ten. And I think I maybe fell into that trap a little bit of like, oh yeah, you bring in Fulgaris and you bring in Hausen, like maybe they will play more of a normal offense. And I think you've seen when you've got those same guys, they're probably going to play that 360 pace, at least for this year. And that's not a bad thing, because it's going to win them some games. It's going to give good programs headaches. And there's going to be some lumps like we saw in East Lansing on Tuesday night. But there's also going to be some times, and I compare it to TJ Otzelberger's first team, which is where I wanted to go next, because I think there's a lot of similarities, maybe not in the exact way they play, but the way they play is not like any other Big Ten team. Just like how Iowa State played was nothing like any other Big 12 team. And it's going to be a change-up.
had to really adjust the way he played to his team, right? To his roster, to the talent he had around him. And I think there were even times during that season where he made reference to that of, the reason we are playing this style is because that's how we can win games. It's not always going to be like this. When I have my guys in here, and I don't think he explicitly said some of this stuff, but it was clear, when I build this program into what I want it to be, it's not going to look like this. But the reason it looks like this right now is because this is how we can win.
And what's the best thing that could have possibly happened during the first year of Otzelberger? You can say Sweet 16. That was an incredible coaching job that was unrealistic to ever expect. The absolute best thing that could have ever happened that year was even making the NCAA tournament. And they did what they had to do, and they played the way they had to make the NCAA tournament. And I still think McCullum is on that same path, where it might not be pretty. I think back to last year, I because I covered Drake. I covered Drake about as closely as anybody outside of our good buddy Justin Miller and Alyssa Hurdle over at the Des Moines Register. And there would be games where they looked awesome. And I remember they were, like 18-1 or something like this. Steve Prohm and Murray State's coming to town.
Mm-hmm.
A super underachieving Murray State team. We all know the type of coach Prohm is, unfortunately. And I go there. I'm expecting to get 10 minutes of highlights and head out. And all of a sudden, Murray State's up 25. And why is that? They've got a lot of athletes. They maybe didn't know how to play completely together, but they had a lot of athletes. And that day, they just out-physical Drake. And I think for Iowa, there will probably be a couple times this season where a team that's maybe not better than them just has more dudes that day. And I don't think that's an indictment on McCollum in any way possible. It's just kind of the reality.
It was good to hear McCollum after the game and kind of the way he reacted to it. And, hey, this is good for us. We're going to learn from this. What he said, we will get shockingly better because of this. Because I think he took some lumps too. It's not just the players who had a welcome to the Big Ten moment. Ben McCollum did as well, and there were some weird lineup things, and he's an unconventional coach in a lot of ways. And I think especially as Iowa fans, after 15 years of Fran McCaffrey and kind of seeing the same thing year in and year out, regardless of who the talent was, they were going to play a certain way. There's a learning adjustment for all of us to kind of figure out how this is going to work. And things like Brendan Hawson not seeing the floor in the second half on Tuesday night. It's just
weird.
Like head scratching. And again, I know he has a reason for it, Ben McCollum, but that's a learning moment for him where, hey, you're down by 20. This guy has been in environments similar to this before. He played well in the first half. You need something. I don't care like what the analytics say or what you're trying to accomplish out here. You got to get that guy back on the floor. And so he had to learn some things as well. And I'm sure, going against a Hall of Fame coach like Tom Izzo, who just works the refs better than anybody maybe in the sport, it was a wake-up call for him too. And so not just film to learn from. There are things that Ben McCollum can take from this as well.
I've got 2 points on Housen, and there is the first year TJ. I look back, honestly, every year under TJ, there's one guy that doesn't play as much as the fans think, and everyone is like, "What? Why is this guy not on the floor?" Year one, it was Tristan Inaruna. 1 year it was Omaha Baloo. We've kind of seen how that goes, unfortunately. Another year is Demarion Watson, and I think. Obviously, Otzelberger and McCollum they're different coaches, different styles, different backgrounds, but I do think they're cut from the same type of cloth where, even the professionals, like you and me, who think about this every second of every day, even we can't comprehend sometimes the way that these guys think and the way that, especially just covering Otzelberger as closely as I do, the way he thinks about defense. Or they had a 4-star guard last year, Noyes Andrusitis. When Keyshawn Gilbert and Taman Lipsey got hurt, they didn't turn to the 4-star freshman guard. They turned to walk-on Cade Kelderman.
Mm-hmm.
And it was 100% not a skill thing. It was a culture thing. It was Kelderman has been in this program for 2 years, and he's put in all the work and gone the extra mile. I'm not saying Noyes didn't put in all the work, but I know for a fact he did not go as far as Kelderman did in practice, and he didn't do as much extra stuff as Kelderman did. And Otzelberger, without knowing this firsthand, to me seems like he made the executive decision. This is in the best interest of the program. It might not be in the best interest of the 2024-25 season to play Kelderman, but if we can show that Kelderman gets a reward, if we can show that the 13th man gets a reward for working this hard and get that opportunity, that pays off in the long run. And I'm not saying this is anything with Housen, but it's no secret that he's not Dennis Rodman out there defensively.
No.
And this, for all we know, this could just be McCollum drawing the line of you have to be at level X defensively to get on the floor. And maybe that's why he didn't play. That's just me reasoning from the outside. I'm not day to day with this program like I maybe used to be, but that's what my mind kind of went to when I saw him not playing in the second half. But I agree. I think they could have used his shooting, and maybe that would have been what got him back in the game.
Yeah, potentially. But I think you're right. Like, Ben McCollum is the type of guy, from what we know of him, where the difference between losing by 20 and making a point, or losing by 12 and kind of letting go of the pillars of your program that you've built things on, that you've tried to instill in these guys every day so far, that's worth the trade-off, right? Like, as you said, the culture thing. We don't let go of the culture. It doesn't fall apart just because we're getting run out of the gym. We don't change the pillars of what we do because of circumstance. This is what we do. This is who we are, and we will win with it, and we will lose with it. And I think you're probably right. I think that's a good analysis of the situation.
My other housing point, I don't know where Williams got this, if he was looking at the wrong box score. He keeps saying that he hit like 10 threes in Hilton last year.
Yeah, right.
He went 2 of 5.
Oh, you're killing me, Jake. I was holding on to that for next week.
So he hit a logo 3. That was like a massive 3 in the game.
And it felt like 10 threes. Yeah.
But I gotta talk to C-Dub, and like, you might be thinking of a different white guy, but he's a good player. And so one of my really good friends, don't ask me how, he's a K-State and a Villanova fan. I don't know how you can have 2 different teams.
That's
weird. But Housen's path, as you know, is Villanova, K-State. Mm-hmm. So he knows him really well, and he is that type of guy he's 22 points. He's a little Bohannon-ish, where there's going to be some games where he can win it no matter what. It doesn't matter what you do. There's going to be some games where he's just a guy. And sometimes that's what you need out of a role player like that.
The problem is with guys like that and guys like Bohannon, they will keep shooting even if they're having a bad night, and that can really put you in a bad spot.
Iowa State had one of those guys a couple of years ago in Caleb Grill.
Yeah.
Where
like
you beat number 1 North Carolina because Grill goes and hits 8 threes, but there's some times where you maybe lose because of Grill. We talked about Housen a little bit. I mentioned Fulgaris. It's pretty clear that Iowa needs a second option to emerge. Do you think it's likely that a specific guy steps up as a second option, or is this going to have to maybe be a by committee thing? One night it's Fulgaris, one night it's Howard, one night it's Housen, or where do you think this goes into the season?
I think if I could draw it up, it would be one guy, but I don't think that's how it's going to play out, just because, again, we're only 8 games into the season, but none of these guys have stepped up to that degree yet. We just haven't seen that consistency out of anybody. So I do think it's going to have to be a by committee, and on a given night, it probably will be Fulgaris. It probably will be, Cooper Koch, who's had good
Koch
games.
Has been
good. He'll be a guy, and hopefully, so I think in an ideal world, one of these guys, especially over these next couple of weeks before you get into the real Big Ten play, will kind of step up and become that guy. I think that's less likely. I think it's more likely that on any given night, you're going to have to kind of see who's got it, who's playing well, who matches up well, and ride with that. And hopefully Ben McCollum, he seems like the kind of coach who can make those adjustments in game. But I do think that's going to leave you very vulnerable to nights where nobody steps up like that. And it's going to be easy to beat Iowa if all you have to do is shut down Bennett Sturts, because he'll get his. He's a great player, but they're not good enough. They're not deep enough. They don't have the talent. And the Big Ten is good enough where Iowa can't just go and win games if everybody else is mediocre. You're going to have an Isaiah Howard or somebody step up every given night. And I think that's more likely.
The more and more we talk, the more I just think of Otzelberger's first year, and I hate to keep going back to that.
Hey, I hope this turns out like Otzelberger's first year.
But that year, there were 3 outcomes. Brockington just didn't have it, and Iowa State loses 41-67 to a good team. Like that was just going to happen if Brockington, which he had it a lot of nights, but if he didn't have it once every 6-7 games, it was going to be ugly. You'd have Brockington play well and another guy step up. Is it Gabe Kalsher? Is it Jazz Coons? Blah, blah, blah. And then you're in these games with good teams, or you have the, oh my gosh, look what Brockington just did takeover game. And that's when he goes and beats West Virginia by himself. He takes over that Cy-Hawk game. And that, to me, that feels more and more like what's going to happen with Iowa. Is leaning on Bennett Sturts is a really good strategy because you assume 5 times out of 6 he's going to be at least good enough to where if one other guy steps up that night, it doesn't matter who it is, you're going to have a shot to win the game. But if he doesn't have it, like he didn't have it in East Lansing, and if you've got teams with big physical guards that can kind of make it difficult, that's where it gets tough. And that, as we get into the Cy-Hawk game, we are going to have one show before the Cy-Hawk men's game, so we'll do more of an in-depth preview. But that's kind of where I like the matchup more and more for Iowa State, is if you tell me, like, what type of team do you want Iowa State to face? It's usually a team that their best guard or their best player is a guard, and if you can take him out of the game, you're going to win 9 times out of 10. Because Iowa State is really good about making life difficult for the other team's best player. And a lot of it will depend on Taman Lipsey's health. But when you've got Killian Torrey, Nate Heisey, like Nate Heisey shut down Cam Jones for an entire second half against Marquette last year, and it was one of the best individual defensive performances I've ever seen. And when you've got a bunch of guys like that you can just throw at them, it makes me feel a little bit better about this Cy-Hawk matchup than I did maybe a couple weeks ago.
Well, and also if you don't miss from 3 like the Cyclones did last night.
Well, that's the problem. I'm going back and forth because I know you and Chris talked about this on Two Guys. There is the saving threes method, and I think that's how the superstitious fan thinks.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's I mean, I sent a couple texts like that during the game. Like,
you're a little stitious.
Can they just save these threes, man? Like, are you kidding me? But at the same time, what did we spend half the season talking about last year? It's like, where's Nate Heisey?
Yeah.
Where's his confidence at? And then Heisey nails a couple in the second half. And what happened last year when Heisey made exactly 1 3, he goes 60% for a month and a half straight. So I think for me, maybe more so than the percentages evening out, having Heisey, having Bateman, obviously Milan feeling good, like maybe that's a better scenario than going into Purdue and going 2 of 24 in the last game.
Yeah, I think so. I absolutely think that you want a team to look the way Iowa State did last night going into a game like they have at Purdue on Saturday. That's a huge game, a huge atmosphere, nothing to lose, which is great for the Cyclones. And yeah, we're working on like a pregame show for next Thursday before the Iowa State men's game. And so we'll save a lot of that talk for then. So stay tuned for updates on that. This is kind of a soft launch of Buckets. We didn't have the open. We don't have any sponsors or segments yet. So if you have ideas, if you have things you want us to hit every week, if you have some idea, hit us up, let us know. But and then I'm sure we'll take a little time off around the holidays because I think Christmas and New Year's are both on Thursdays. And that's when the schedule gets boring again anyway before we really hit the road running in January. But I think Iowa State's in a great position for Saturday. You go into Purdue with nothing to lose. You really can make a statement, not even just by winning, but by playing with that team, by hanging with them in that arena. You can really make a big statement. You're not going to drop real far unless you just get run out of the gym, which I don't think this team is capable of doing under TJ Otzelberger. They really have put it together to a point, and then these freshmen are playing so well. The Taman Lipsey thing is maybe the one question mark, but even then, they're playing pretty damn well without him. I mean, you obviously want him, but it's such a luxury to be able to go into a stretch like they have at Purdue and home against Iowa and understand that, hey, if Taman needs another couple of weeks, if he can't be 100% until we start Big 12 play in January, that's okay because you've already built up enough of a resume. You've already built up enough goodwill that even if you lose at Purdue and even if somehow Iowa comes into Hilton and stuns you next Thursday night, it's not going to tank your season. It's not really even going to affect how people think of you. And you need a healthy Taman Lipsey for the Big 12 season. And so it's more important to get him healthy and make sure he's ready to go. Maybe start working him in these next couple of games. But it really does seem like they can play very well without him. You're going to need him at some point. So I like the way TJ has handled the Lipsey situation so far.
Yeah, and he's not a guy that has to prove anything. Like, just, he is who he is. He's dynamic. He plays harder than anyone in the country. He plays for more than just the name on the back of his jersey. And that's cliche, and it is
real.
what it is. But
yeah.
He grew up in that city, and
yes.
I'm sure the full stories will come out someday of the Joshua Jefferson LSU transfer portal saga. But let's just say Lipsey wasn't afraid to maybe have to make a sacrifice if he needed to. And not that nobody made him do that, and I don't think it ended up happening. But the type of character that guy plays with, it speaks more than just his numbers. And his numbers right now are pretty dang good. I don't know if you saw this tweet I put out earlier, but Joshua Jefferson, Milan Momcilovic, and Taman Lipsey are all averaging 18-plus a game. That's the only trio in America that's doing that. There's no team right now in America that has those 18-plus points a game. And I think I know some people that maybe I talk to on a consistent basis thought I was maybe too bullish on the team going into the season. And at this point, I feel like I even undersold them a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of my reasoning was, yeah, you can look at striking out on Oscar Clough, which is a massive storyline on Saturday. And you can, Mason Williams is out for the year. He hurt his hip. And you don't get a dynamic scorer maybe in the portal. But my thing the whole time was, is there anyone with a transfer class better than Taman, Jefferson, and Milan? And I don't think any school around the country brought in three guys that good. It's not flashy because you've already seen them, and it's not
right.
You don't get the commitment graphic that these guys are coming to Ames. And I think that's something that we should all just be cautious about in the future, because I fall into it too. Like, don't get me wrong.
into it with Hawkeye football is like this a lot, where they don't make a big splash. But it's like, hey, we've got, the best defensive backs in the
Imagine
conference
throwing
already.
Cohen Entringer or Aaron Graves on a commitment graphic. You're like, oh my gosh.
Exactly.
We got Cohen Entringer.
Yes.
We just don't do that.
Jennings Dunker. We got, the best offensive line in the Big Ten. But no, it's because they were homegrown, because they were developed there. You're right. You don't get that like visceral reaction to it. And so you kind of, especially as everybody else in the country puts up those graphics, right? And you miss out on a couple of these guys maybe. You start to think, uh-oh. And then you remember, hey, these guys are pretty damn good. And they have another year in the program, another year under Otzelberger. I agree. I thought Iowa State was going to be good. I did not think they were going to be this good. This feels like TJ's best team.
I kind of agree. I want to wait a little bit to officially declare that. But it's really hard to watch what they did to Syracuse and what they did to Creighton without Lipsey, and how they closed that St. John's game without Lipsey too. There's a different sort of moxie and bounce with Torrey and Bateman, and they're still just scratching the surface a little bit. Nothing again, like if this team had Curtis Jones on it, it's a whole nother level. But there's a reason Kurt was scoring 8 points a game at Buffalo. Like, he developed like crazy in his time at Iowa State, but he came in as a no offer guy out of high school. He went to Indian Hills in Ottumwa. Like, that's what he did, and he was able to work his way up. Torrey and Bateman look like NBA players.
They do.
And granted, Omaha Baloo looks like an NBA player, and it didn't turn out that way. But when you have recruits that come in looking like an NBA body in producing right away, it does elevate the ceiling a little bit. And there's also the aspect of how would I put this? There's the aspect of those guys have failed.
Yeah.
Like, they were number 2 in the country last year. I don't care how you cut it. Injuries, blah, blah, blah. It was a disappointment to end how it did.
Absolutely.
And you have 4 mainstays on that team that were a part of that, and they've they've understood that. So that's I guess my state of the address right now in Iowa State. None of that's breaking news, but we both kind of like to passively aggressive troll on Twitter. So
we do.
That's the thing though. Like, I really like Bennett Sturts, and I got to know Bennett on a personal level at Drake, and we had one time where we spent 30 minutes talking about Des Moines cheeseburgers and just like where our favorite burgers were. And Sturts is just a really good dude, so it's definitely a little different for me, but
it's also, man, as you get older, it gets harder to like hate on these guys, and you learn a little bit more about them. Like I don't know TJ well, but I know a lot of people who do, and I see the way he carries himself, and it's like I don't like that he has Iowa State as good as he does. I don't like that when they beat Iowa next Thursday, I'm not going to be happy about it. That's not a hateable person.
Yeah.
I hope whoever Iowa State hires to replace Matt Campbell next week is a hateable guy. I hope they hire some asshole who all Hawkeye fans can just hate.
Well, we can both agree. I don't think you're ever going to cheer for Iowa State.
Nope.
I'll never cheer for Iowa. And my grandparents might be watching. My awesome Uncle Dave might be watching. And they're diehard Iowa fans. And they have, like, I've grown up around that. And there's no one on earth more lovely than my grandparents that I don't love anyone more dearly than I love them.
Yeah.
And I know how happy it would make them if I just cheered for Iowa. And I'm like, sorry, Grandma. The best I can do is just not cheer against Iowa. Like I'll just sit here neutral, eyes closed. I'll wear a plain white t-shirt, and that's about as good as it'll get. And I think we're both kind of cut from that same cloth.
Dude, I live in a world where I am known as the guy who hates Wisconsin, and all of my family is from Wisconsin. I was at Thanksgiving last week, and my uncle kind of pulled me aside. He's like, hey, because Murph had me do on Murph and Andy. It was my birthday. It was my 43rd birthday, and it was the week of Iowa, Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah.
So he was like, hey, can you come up with 43 reasons that you hate Wisconsin? Hell yeah, I could do that in my sleep. And so in this clip, it didn't go viral, but I mean, it went out there, and it certainly hit people who, like you said, who are dear to me, who I love, who, you know, I wish the best in the world for, and would never want anything bad to happen to. And my uncle kind of pulls me aside, and he's like, hey, I saw that 43 reasons you hate Wisconsin. I said, yeah, what'd you think of that? He goes, yeah, it was funny. But the key was, I ended it. My last thing was, the thing I hate most is so many people I love are from Wisconsin, and so that kind of won me, or won him
over. Yeah,
allowed me to sit at the table on Thanksgiving with a bunch of Wisconsinites, and also Iowa kicking their ass doesn't hurt either. Ryan asks us, you gonna cover Drake and UNI too, or
Yes.
just Iowa and Iowa State? We do plan to cover Drake and UNI, and really, I mean, like college basketball as a whole, right? And honestly, like if there's big NBA things, you and I are both into the NBA. I mean, we don't know exactly where this is going to go in a given week. I will say we'll probably cover less of Drake and UNI these first couple of shows as we lead into Cy-Hawk. And really until as much as they give us a reason to cover them, right? UNI looks like it's a good team. Looks like it's going to be the team worth following all year long, and we'll certainly talk about that. We'll see how Drake kind of puts it together here as they get into the Valley season. But no, we definitely do plan to cover all four of the Big Four teams and really college basketball as a whole.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is not Drake and UNI's fault at all. If anything, this is programs like Iowa and Iowa State's fault for not playing schools like Drake and UNI.
Yep.
Those schools just don't get to play a ton of important games before Valley play. And that sucks. And I do watch a lot of Drake and UNI once Valley play rolls around. So we'll definitely start hitting on them once January rolls around. And I think UNI is a bit more of a proven commodity. They've certainly got a lot more rollover from last year. We still don't know a ton about Drake. They've laid a couple stinkers, but they've had a lot of injuries. They beat Western Illinois by between 70 and 80 points on Wednesday or on Tuesday night. So we'll certainly get into them more. We'll also talk about the women, which I guess we could probably just dive in right now.
Absolutely, because we won't have a show before the next that Cy-Hawk game, which I think is the more interesting and hopefully certainly the more competitive of the two games. I think Iowa State is still the favorite in that game for a lot of different reasons. Most of them named Audie Crooks, who's just incredible. And it's been so, again, like one of these people on the other side of the rivalry who you just can't hate. It's impossible to hate Audie Crooks. I don't want her to do well next Wednesday night. But, like, I got off a plane a couple of weeks ago, and I'm, going down the escalator at the Des Moines airport, and there's a giant picture of her, or we play a pre-roll fairway ad where she's starring in it. We've been following her since she was a sophomore in high school, much like Caitlin Clark.
Right.
And it's how do you hate somebody like that? It's impossible to hate Bill Fennelly. Like, I know he gets into it with Iowa coaches, and there's no love lost there, but, like, he's one of the nicest guys I've come across in this business. That being said, I think that's going to be a hell of a game. And I think if I was going to find a way to not get swept, not just next week in the Cy-Hawk thing, but, man, in the Cy-Hawk series kind of as a whole, it's going to be that game Wednesday night. And you're going to have a really good game from a lot of Hawkeye players. They're going to have to get healthy. They play Rutgers this weekend. They have several people who are day-to-day, including Chit Chat Wright, who's probably one of the bigger pieces that if you could get her back before next Wednesday, that would help a lot. But I think this is going to be a hell of a game. And I expect Iowa State to be favored. It's tough to play in Hilton, but I'm excited for that.
Iowa has won 8 of 9 in the series.
That's wild.
Which is crazy.
It is.
Like you said, Hilton's a really good atmosphere, and it always gets up for this game. Believe it or not, the one win Iowa State has in the series, they beat Caitlin Clark. And granted, it was her sophomore year. She wasn't completely Caitlin yet, and that was still the Ashley Jones, Lexi Donarski. Mm-hmm. So those teams were on a pretty equal playing field that day. But there's been a lot of Iowa State teams that are probably on par with those Iowa teams, and they couldn't beat them even at Hilton. And there's been a lot of games at Carver, too, where it seemed like Iowa State had it in the bag the last 2 minutes, and something happened. So there is pressure, I think, on Fenley to get this done, because this should be more of an even rivalry than it is. The women's basketball series should not look like wrestling. It just shouldn't.
Right.
These programs are both outside of the Caitlin Clark era, which is a extreme outlier. She's the best player to ever play women's basketball, and she played for Iowa. Those years were going to be different. But outside of that, these programs are punch for punch, and seemingly Iowa still just owns the series. So this is a big, big game for Fenley.
Yeah, it absolutely is. You're exactly right. And again, this feels like it's early, but there's potential that this is Bill Fennelly's best team, which is, again, really, really saying something, the longevity, the career he's put together there in Ames. But he's got something really special. They were disappointing. Was it last year they started the season in the top 10 and really kind of fell apart in the first part of the season and ended up being a decent team, but not like anybody thought they were going to be. And they need to make a statement win. You have a top 15, maybe higher team by the time the rankings come out on Monday, coming into your stadium or your arena. You're a top 10 team. It's an in-state rivalry, as you said. You've kind of been owned in this rivalry. You can't let Jan Jensen get up on you. Also, Lisa Gluter kind of had your number late. You can't let the next generation of Hawkeyes kind of do this to you. And so, yeah, this is a massive game. I think certainly more pressure on Iowa State. In the men's game, it'll be interesting. It kind of depends on how Iowa looks against Maryland to see. I mean, if Iowa comes out and looks good and beats Maryland, there's not a ton of pressure on Iowa to go into Ames and do anything. You're playing a really, really good Cyclone team. If you lose to Maryland, there is some pressure because you can't go 0-3 in this stretch. The Iowa women don't have much pressure going into Ames. This is an opportunity for them. It's a game that Iowa State really needs to win.
Yeah, it's a similar spot for the Iowa women that the Iowa State men are in against Purdue.
Yes.
Where
Yes.
Like, it comes Selection Sunday, it's absolutely not held against you in any way if you lose. But if you win, it could be worth a seed line.
Absolutely.
You look at these teams, Iowa State 10 right now, Iowa 12. That is right in the 2, 3, 4 seed territory. If you're on the bubble and Iowa State is the last 2 seed and Iowa's the first 3 seed, whoever's got the head-to-head in that is probably going to get the seed line. And as we know in women's basketball, maybe a little less than in the past, but it's a very, very chalky tournament.
Yeah, yes.
And your path to the Elite Eight gets a lot easier when you're the 2 seed than the 3 seed, even more so than it does in men's basketball.
Mm-hmm.
So these games where you can get a top 15 team, whether it's at home or on the road, is a massive opportunity for a statement, because if you look at the Big 12 right now, it's not what it used to be, especially losing Texas and losing Oklahoma. The 4 teams that they've brought in from other conferences, the Arizona schools, Utah, BYU, Cincinnati, like, none of those teams have really added anything in women's basketball. So there's a lot of games where you look at the calendar and you just circle it as a W, but it's not a W that gets you anything. It's just a game you should win. So these type of chances, maybe even more so for Iowa State, are limited because it's just TCU, West Virginia, Baylor. But outside of that, like, K-State's kind of down this year. There's not a lot of opportunities to pick up these marquee wins. So it's a massive, massive test for both teams.
So do you think Iowa's strategy is let Audie get hers and try to limit Addie Brown and the rest? I mean,
it's so hard because you can't let
a lot of people tried that with
Audie.
Caitlin Clark, and it rarely worked. Sometimes it did, but it rarely worked if you were like, hey, we're going to let Caitlin do what she does and stop everybody else. Well, Caitlin would beat you single-handedly, and I think there's the danger of that with Audie Crooks also.
Yeah, for Audie, it's completely matchup dependent. And I'd have to go look at the stats on what Hannah Stolke's been able to do against her in the last 2 matchups and what Ava Hayden was able to do last year. But it doesn't feel like this Iowa team is big enough or strong enough to go one-on-one with Audie.
No.
Like K-State in the past, they've had Aoka Lee, and they can go one-on-one. Audie's probably going to win the matchup, but she's not going to be at risk to go score 47 like she did against Indiana, where I think Iowa's kind of in that same boat where they're going to have to send doubles, and you're going to have to allow the possibility of Ariana Jackson to hit 5 threes.
Mm-hmm.
Which she started the year not great, but she hit 4 threes in the first 4 minutes against Drake and pretty much put that game away. Jada Williams, streaky shooter, but when she's on, she's on. Same thing with Kenzie Hare. I think that's got to be Iowa's strategy, where you're sending doubles, sometimes maybe even triples if you're just flashing, and she catches the ball, you try and go hit it out of her hands,
right,
fly back to your defender. I think that kind of has to be the way you play Audie, aside from straight up.
Last year, Audie had 31 points against Iowa, 10 rebounds, and they lost by 6. Addie Brown had 13, and that's the only other double-figure scorer. And you have a bunch of...
And that, you reading that is just the story of Iowa State women's basketball in the 2024-25 season.
Yeah,
there's so many games where it's Audie Crooks, 28, Addie Brown, 15, 10, and 7.
Yeah.
The next leading scorer, 4 points.
Yeah,
and
right.
they've gotten better so far this season in that regard.
They have.
There's still some areas of consistency that we need to see over a 20-game sample size and not a 10-game sample size. But Jada Williams she's been the type of point guard that Iowa State hasn't had in quite some time. She's just a different level of athlete, and she's a downhill scorer, able to get off the bounce. And then it just comes down to those Ariana Jackson, Sydney Harris, Kenzie Hare. Are those players hitting threes? Or one of them hitting threes?
Yeah.
And if you can get 1 or 2 of them, or some nights all 3 of them making shots, then that is where Iowa State does kind of elevate to another level. And unfortunately or fortunately for Iowa, that's not really under their control. Like,
no,
it's just, does the ball go in or does it not? And
Yeah.
that's what makes basketball such a dumb sport sometimes to talk about. It's like, I think back to that KU men's game a few years ago. Trey King had hit 4 threes, or sorry, he'd hit 3 threes all season long. It's the end of January. He makes 4 against Kansas. And Bill Self, after the game, just said they had a guy who hit 3 threes all year, make 4 today. What are we going to do? And sometimes that's basketball, and that's why we love it.
Absolutely.
Should we get out of here?
I guess so.
This is a good soft launch.
It's been fun. We're gonna keep growing it. We appreciate it. We got a good audience here tonight. Hopefully, a lot of Cyclone fans trying to get their mind off anything else that may be happening these next.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've
24
been
hours
on
will
this
be really
program for
interesting.
45 minutes and I haven't looked at my phone, so I'm.
Yeah, you want to check real quick if is there any news we need to break?
Chris Williams, you're fired. Why didn't you answer my call? No, I'm kidding. We'll stay updated with this whole Matt Campbell situation, and
But hey, it's
I
buckets.
guess we'll see what
baby.
happens.
We'll have a pre. You'll be in Hilton next Thursday. We'll have
we'll
a
do a
pregame
show. We'll do a show, probably 3 or 4, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
And we'll get it out to join us live, or if you need something to listen to the hour leading up to a game, we'll be your spot here on Buckets. But other
Shout
than
out
that,
to Eric Herman for the awesome
looks
graphics. John Liebel for kind of helping put this whole thing together. This is going to be a fun season, man. I'm jacked for this.
And the plan going forward, 8:00 Thursday nights, except for next week, except for our second show, because that's when the Cyhawk game is. But other than that, I think we'll plan on most Thursday nights at 8, and it's going to be a fun time. We hope you can join us each week here in the Channel Seed Studios. Thanks for joining Andrew Downs and myself, Jake Brend, here in the Channel Seed Studios.